7th.
There was a bit of.
Oh, my God. Honestly, where we're taking education.
Seven.
7:07.
7:07. And live streaming the meeting on NBTC's YouTube channel. The board administrators confirm they have and. Well, tonight, we have a pretty significant, and I mean, we do every time we meet, but tonight in particular, we have the opportunity to make a bold statement on the steps to ensure future funding for the transit network that not only serves our communities, but boosts our regional and statewide economies. We'll hear about the major endorsements towards securing the future of non-VRE and systems that happened just in the last and PMB rules and estimate 48. The benefits are truly will want to provide an opportunity for generations non-transit systems. At your seats, we have the proposed resolution from DMV rules council on and the estimate 48 joint subcommittee action later. Congress will want to be able to be here, so we'll do a lot of things for that. We also like to welcome this supervisor Anderson and us. Welcome.
Thank you.
We want to attend the TC from Fairfax County. And a reminder, we have a closed session at the end to discuss some personnel items. So, the script that I'm given said, let's get started. I'll add, I'd like to get over by 9 o'clock. So we'll see how we do.
Second that.
Second that, right. Did we receive any public comments?
No, Mr. Chair, we did not receive any public comments this evening.
Okay, no public comments. Thanks for that. Now, the first action item is September 4 minutes. Can I have a motion to approve these?
Second.
Seconded.
Who seconded? Thank you.
We have that down, but it doesn't motion, seconded. Is there any action on that? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed, any abstentions? It passes unanimously. So I wanna, administer the oath of office for our new commissioner of civil affairs. Which you will be up here and be pointing up, those want to come up here, and we'll do the oath.
It's Brendan. Thank you. Those always look great.
Those are doing well, very good. Idea. Yeah, I got her.
So, the right hand. I'm just following this for, the person who wants to take the United States and the.
I think that's where I go.
And I will place that this, all we do is this combination. Member of the board of the committee.
He's like, so we.
Fantastic.
All right, thank you very much.
So the next item is the resolution of commendations beyond with James on Arkansas and from the TC. We have a resolution. I think that's in your package. Is it in the package?
It is. Did you want to?
Well, I just thought we'd vote the resolution and when he arrives, we could present it.
He was on.
That's okay with me.
So-
Yes.
You can keep it.
James, thank you so much for joining. I'm sure you could get it on the particular side one day. So we have a resolution of commendation on the for service on NBTC and the VRU Operations Board. Jim joined NBTC in January 2020, representing Fairfax County on the commission, and served on the NBTC Legislative and Policy Committee. He also served as a principal member of the VRU Operations Board and its chair in 2023. He led VRU during a challenging time and responded to a post-pandemic world, but also an exciting time as they developed their new system plan. This past September, James won the special election in Virginia's 11th congressional district to replace the late Jerry Connolly. So congratulations, James. NBTC looks forward to working with you in your new role in the United States Congress. Can I have a motion to approve the commendation resolution?
So the resolution.
Second.
Get that down. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. So many seconds.
Any discussion at this point? And anything, thoughts, comments you want to make? Yes.
I'm just wondering if it doesn't pass, we get him back.
Yeah, I guess there's no federal appointee to NBT.
Who's changed that?
Good. So, well, anyway, James, I want to thank you personally. I know a lot of us worked on a lot of things with James over the last few years, but a lot of the things that we're just now getting to the point today, we're going to be looking and talking about resolution on SJ 28, chaired by Senator Evan. So you had a lot to do with that in terms of really creating the groundwork and their leadership on the legislative committee. And I have to say, now that I'm sitting in this seat as a regular WMATA board member, I'm not terribly upset that you are not at every meeting. Because I know how much you know about Metro, and frankly, your constructive insights and frankly, accountability that you've shown about Metro and other systems that we oversee here is extremely helpful and I've learned a lot. So thank you, Jim.
So we have a motion made and seconded to approve the resolution. Nominating member of Congress, Lockett Shaw. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions. So I want to present it to you, James, but I wanted to make a comment. You know, it's so important to have people with local government experience in the Congress. And lots of Jerry Connolly was shared by everyone in this room. Jerry brought that local government experience to Congress. And we know that you have similar experience and we'll bring that as well. Do you have any comments you want to make? Please feel free.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, thank you all so much. It's a great honor and so happy to be back with you. And I appreciate that someone gave you all the meeting material. But you know what, I did regret that before the special election in September, I wasn't able to make the last meeting that I would have been here, had a few things going on schedule wise. But I would have shared with all of you the deep respect I have for the work that you all do here at NBTC and in your respective roles across the region. You know, when Jerry said it, he wasn't just saying it. When I say it, I'm not just saying it. I really believe that a local government and state government are the most important levels of government, because the work that you all do directly impacts people's lives, and transportation is first and foremost in impacting people's lives. And one conversation that I had with a constituent will always remain with me. And as a young woman who, you know, has significant disabilities, complex medical issues, real mobility challenges, and she described for me the dramatic change in the quality of her life that came from about 27 linear feet of sidewalk being built in her community, because for her, that 27 linear feet was a difference between being able to get on a metro bus or not. And it completely broadened her entire world in ways probably most of us here could never understand or fully appreciate. And that's the work that you all are doing here at NBTC and in all of your roles. It makes a big, big difference for folks. So I was honored to be a part of your work for a period of time, and I'm going to continue to support your work and amplify your work in many ways. Thank you so much. It's a great one.
Well, we know that in Congress, you probably have a bigger desk, so we have something similar, and, maybe all the officers, if they can come up and do a photo with the current officer, will go on with now, so the one that would be great. But, and, Walter, everybody's good? No. Paul?
Executive committee, you'd like to do committee? Executive committee?
Thank you.
Okay, there we go. So we have a couple more.
He's running away.
Yeah. There we go.
Good here? Well, it's my pleasure and honor on this resolution. Small token of our appreciation. Hopefully, we'll find a place.
All right.
For that.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Would love to stay with you all. I don't want to make it any longer than it needs to be. Thank you all.
Just send Mateo here.
I like that word for relations.
But that is.
That's true, even
So much.
Sorry, she thought I was coming to get my parking.
For sure, something that's fortunate. Okay, consent items, and that's business.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have two actions on the consent agenda. One is to appoint James Bierman to the Legislative and Policy Committee. And the other one is to approve the 2026 NBTC meeting schedule.
Is that meeting schedule outlined here somewhere?
To be included in your meeting materials, in the meeting materials. Yeah.
Oh,
No, it's.
Next, get to next page.
The meeting materials, yeah.
Full.
Yeah, it's in the
Online, like, no.
online.
Okay, thank you. I so move.
Second.
consent agenda has been moved and seconded. James, sorry, you could, if you want to remove yourself, you could.
No, actually, I I have the staff notes from Fairfax County and I was happy that they said county staff recommends approval.
Get shot, staff. That's a lot. So, we have a motion, second on consent agenda, all of them saying aye. Transit performance trends and ridership to help frame just how strong our transit network is. We got WCC data visualization program manager social. To provide real highlights on the status of transit ridership, success stories. And we seem to also a handout with some key takeaways from her briefing.
All right, hello, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm here to talk to you today about transit ridership and how well it's doing, how strong transit is right now. So the big top number I want to tell you is 2.1 million transit riders. Northern Virginia Transit is moving 2.1 million riders each week on transit, so that's amazing. And that's a static number, and you have a couple more on that handout and on the screen. But I also want to point you to the 15%, which is the fact that ridership is now 15% higher than it was last year. That's year over year, fiscal 2025 or fiscal 2024 to 2025. And for reference, just as we think about around the Commonwealth, cumulatively around the Commonwealth, we're seeing an 11% increase over the last fiscal year. HRT down Hampton Roads is a 10% increase. GRTC in Richmond is a 12% increase or 15% increase. And as I talk about all of these numbers, I just want to note that this is all for fiscal 2025, which of course ended on June 30th. And so since then, of course, the federal shutdown has impacted ridership. But this is not included in the statistics that I'm going to talk to you about today. I do want to acknowledge, of course, that this is something that is currently happening, and we know it will cause ridership decline. And we are keeping track of that as the data comes out. There is a data lag. So as that data comes out and we're able to analyze it, we'll of course come back and give you an update. We'll be working closely with our transit agencies. I just wanted to note that off the top. I'm sure that would be a question. So we're thinking until June. And so we can go on to the next slide and just talk about what's going on with our local agencies. So overall bus ridership is the highest it's been in a decade. And that includes all our local transit agencies as well as OmniRide and Virginia Metrobus. And I also just want to take this moment to highlight 3 of our local bus agencies that have had ridership that has not just recovered, but exceeded 2019 ridership levels. That's, as you see on the slide, that's Q, Dash, and Fairfax Connector. Yeah. And these are, I think it's a really amazing statistic just by itself, but also noting that these are small, medium, and large agencies in our region. They're different sizes. They serve different parts of Northern Virginia. They have different types of service. They serve different needs of riders. And so this is just, another great news story that I wanted to note, but I'm going to keep on moving. I know we have a long meeting. So on the next slide, I just want to point out that commuter bus, we may have heard kind of in the past that commuter bus is not matched local bus and ridership recovery, but it is bouncing back now. And that narrative has started to change. Commuter bus is now, it's back. It's really correlated with that return to office directives. And so keep that in mind that these are to the end of fiscal year 2025. So I can't speak to what's going on right now with the federal government. But the increase in commuter bus as well as VRE ridership is really correlated with that return to office directives as well as service enhancements. And so it's all these long distance commuter routes. So both VRE and counties commuter routes as well as OmniRides. And I'm going to keep moving along onto the next slide and just talk about Metro for 1 second. There's a lot of great statistics on this slide, also in the handout that's in front of you. But I'm just going to note specifically my favorite one, which is the exceptional performance of weekend ridership. Weekend ridership on Metro Rail across the region and in the entire DMV is doing really well. In Virginia, because it's NVTC, I want to shout out Virginia Metro Rail ridership specifically is 30% higher than it was in 2019. So we're not talking about recovery anymore. We're just talking about growth as a whole. And so I'm going to keep on moving on from that slide now. and just talk about some of the things that the agencies have been doing to innovate and to meet this ridership demand. All because of, the reliable service and all the hard work that's being done at these agencies. That's why we're seeing this ridership success. And so there's also a lot on this slide, and if you're interested, I encourage you to read it more in detail, but I won't read it all to you right now. Just noting that through full network redesigns, through more tactical, targeted restructuring of networks, service enhancements that then reflect rider needs, we're seeing free and reduced fare programs that increase access to transit networks. Transit agencies, through all of these measures, are innovating and adapting to the needs of the riders in the region, which is amazing. That's why we're seeing these great successes. And so I just want on the next slide to leave you with, if you didn't already get it, my very brief but kind of to the point presentation, ridership is doing really well in our region, especially when we compare it to the state. And these successes are because we have maintained service levels. And you're going to hear a lot more of these themes throughout the rest of the meeting tonight, but the funding uncertainty that we're facing right now does put this hard work and all this progress at risk. It's kind of why this presentation's up top of the meeting, so you kind of have that perspective. And you're gonna hear a lot more about the solutions and recommendations from DMV Moves and SJ28 as we move along tonight. But I just want to leave you with these good news stories at the beginning of the evening, and just remind you one more time that, as the chair said, you have this one pager in front of you with some more statistics, and of course the presentation itself has a lot more numbers. With that, I'll hand it back over.
Thank you. First of all, amazing, so exciting, great news all week this week. My one question, and I probably should have asked earlier last time, will we be getting an update? I'm curious about the micromobility pilot that Leesburg, Loudoun County did, and I don't know if that's going to be shared with us at some point or with our staffs. I think that's nice to see that it worked in one part of our jurisdiction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can definitely work on some kind of report in some capacity.
Yes, we work at the whole ecosystem and what we want to try and pilot, would love to see that.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Wilmot Board members, Paul Swedberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have an extensive report that's in your materials that provides details on WMATA board activities in September and October, including the fiscal year 26 track work, our agency safety plan, and the fiscal year 25 year-end financials, among other items. But tonight we'll cover three key highlights, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Alcorn. First, WMATA will release the fiscal year 27 budget and a fiscal year 27 through 2032 capital improvement program at its December 11th board meeting. There will be two capital plan scenarios, one austere scenario that does not assume additional capital funding, and one DMV Move scenario that adds potentially $460 million to the capital program from DC, Maryland, and Virginia in the beginning of fiscal year 28. A capital fiscal cliff is anticipated in fiscal year 29 without additional funding, as we've all learned in the past several months. On the operating side, we expect annual subsidy growth at 3% and maintaining current fare, the current. As everyone knows, Virginia needs to identify an operating fund solution to sustain its current levels of investment in fiscal year 27. Otherwise, the local jurisdictions will face significantly higher subsidy bills upon the expiration of the Commonwealth support. We understand it's difficult to budget under these kind of uncertainties, but jurisdictions should be prepared to meet the financial obligations to WMATA. As always, WMATA management continues to identify one-time and reoccurring cost savings through ATO, bus efficiencies, vacancy management, and improved ridership. The public comment period for our strategic transformation plan, the STP, updated closed earlier this week. Metro staff briefed the NBTC WMATA committee a couple weeks ago and received positive feedback from the commissioners. The refresh to the plan emphasizes our desire to be a world-class transit operator. The continued focus on cost efficiency is a core goal and doubles down on continuous improvement as a guiding value. I want to make sure everyone has also heard that very soon we'll be launching the Tap Ride Go on Metro Bus in mid-November. That means, like the rail system, you'll be able to use your contactless debit or credit card to pay your way on the bus. And you know, it's on your app or in your wallet, you know, however you want to use it. It's been really great on Metro Rail. It was almost an immediate acceptance from day one, which has been really great. And we've been able to capture people who are in town visiting or here in meetings are really using the tap and go on rail. So we hope the same is the case on the bus. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. Alcott.
So yeah, just a couple quick things. Tap Ride Go is coming to bus. After that will be the parking
I was
garages.
gonna ask that.
So that's coming soon as well. It's the next phase. We did Metro Board meeting today. We did have committee meetings, and we got briefed on our internal controls, basically risk management, looking not just at safety, but more broadly at anything that could impact or could significantly disrupt successful achievement of the mission and objectives of the organization. So we also had key performance indicators today. This is quarterly, something that the Metro Board sees. You know, everything from the percentage of elevators and everything to on-time performance for bus and rail. Most indicators are going in the right direction. I think it's very positive, and but it also gives us an opportunity when things aren't, some of those KPIs aren't going in the right direction, to hear why and to ask questions. So anyway, going through that process, I think is very valuable. I know for the board, I think for the general public, everybody to see. So anyway, that's a quick update.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Are the KPIs pretty accessible to the public?
They are. Yeah, if you go on the website, you can, I think you can, well, certainly go to the board meeting material.
Yeah, the board meeting, it's quite robust. Yeah, it's very detailed.
Go ahead.
Thank you. No, excellent work. I have to say, I was very excited to see, maybe I hadn't seen it before, the DMV Moves vision and goals. Goal number 3 was grow ridership through transit-oriented development. I know that to me is really important to expand that ridership, and I know we're getting ready to launch the West Falls Church development. I don't know if that's something the board is continuing to look at, the progress on looking at, I know we talked about it recently, the sites owned by or right on Metro, and how to continue to move forward on those development opportunities.
Yeah, we had, for those of you who don't know, Metro has a whole real estate team, and they interact a lot with jurisdictions, planning, and so there's a lot of cooperation at the local level, the WMATA team.
Yeah, if you can continue to just monitor and share back with us, that would be.
Yeah, that's very helpful, because the TOD and real estate is actually a very active point of discussion by the board. I think, and I know, you know, visited with Supervisor Huntington.
Very conscious of it.
So they're
As well, yeah.
So yes, absolutely. So
Got Vienna over here too.
and Vienna, absolutely. But anyway, thank you for this. Will
Thank you.
Comments? Thanks for your work so much. Time consuming, complex and challenging. We don't get over it. Okay, next item on the agenda, we're supposed to be scheduled on the committee legislative and policy committee. this section of tonight's agenda will be focusing on discussion and potential action on legislative recommendations. Including in the approved resolutions by the DMV rules and the SJ 28 joint subcommittee effort. We do have some minor housekeeping first, so we'll move through those items quickly, very quickly, prior to legislative discussion. We'll start with NGTC, Wilmota Committee Chair Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since the last commission meeting, the committee met with our legislative and policy committee colleagues twice to tackle one of the issues. At our most recent meeting, we were briefed on this year's NBTC report on the performance and conditions of Oklahoma, a draft of which is available in your materials. This report will be considered at our December meeting for approval and released to the governor, the Education Board, and members of the General Assembly. This year's report satisfies state code requirements and details the commission's support for a long-term sustainable funding solution for WMATA, excuse me. The draft report documents the DMV moves and SJ 28 initiatives and continues to advance other commission priorities beyond long-term funding that will enable WMATA to control costs and grow revenue. Those priorities include managing labor cost growth, a coordinated jurisdictional audit, establishing a reserve fund at Metro, and a better working relationship with the Safety Commission, among other priorities. We are asking for commissioners to provide any feedback to staff by Friday, November 14th, so they can incorporate comments into a final report for consideration next month. Once approved by the commission, the report will be submitted to the governor and General Assembly by the December 15th deadline. WMATA Program Manager Adam Hagar is available to answer any questions about the draft report. Back to you, Mr. Chair. Unless there are questions for Mr. Hagar.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Any questions or comments from Matt? All right, well, then I'll turn it over to the Legislative and Policy Committee Chair, Kenneth. I'm going to provide some brief update to the Legislative Committee, aside from our work fund. The Legislative and Policy Committee.
Yes, so I wanted to touch on a couple of legislative and policy committee items. I'd like to direct everyone to the written report in your meeting materials for our 2026 legislative and policy agenda. MVTC's proposed 2026 agenda is included in the meeting materials. While I know we will speak shortly about any potential changes from the DMV moves and SJ 28 efforts, I did want to share the current draft and its focus areas. Similar to previous years, it is divided into state priorities and federal priorities. Major categories for the state activities include long-term sustainable funding that supports Northern Virginia's transit needs, sound financial management and good governance, future transit innovation and improvements. And for our major categories around the federal activities, we have surface transportation reauthorization that supports transit, grant funding programs that enhances transit's future, and policy and regulations that strengthen transit. Staff will accept comments on the draft legislative and policy agenda until Friday, November 14th, which I believe is next Friday. And Mr. Chair, if I can move to 7D, Transit Service Delivery Advisory Committee, or TSDAC. Within your materials are included updates on the DRPT efforts to modify the merit program. At this time, MVTC staff have been working with our jurisdictions, as well as the Virginia Transit Association, the Community Transportation Association of Virginia, the Virginia Association of Counties, and the Virginia Municipal League on comments in response to DRPT's proposed changes. These comments will be on November 21st and will be included in the meeting materials next month. Just very quickly, we feel that DRPT might be moving a little quickly with this, and so we would definitely want to get these comments in to make sure that we're heard at the next CTV meeting. And for the federal update, within your meeting materials are also included some items that relate to public transit funding. But with that, I will turn it back to you, Mr. Chair, to lead a discussion on MVTC's work towards long-term sustainable funding for transit and related discussion that connects to our legislative agenda.
Thanks very much. Any questions or comments for Kenneth? Okay, not seeing any. This is really one of the two most important items in tonight's agenda. That is MVTC and regional work toward long-term sustainable transit funding via the rules SJ 28, which is the Northern Virginia Valley Transit Fund. A possible and proposed MVTC action. I mentioned at the opening of the meeting, we have the opportunity to make a statement on steps to ensure long-term sustainable funding of the transit network. It not only serves our community, but it boosts our regional and statewide economies. Recall that earlier this year, MVTC approved 2 foundational resolutions articulating key principles to securing long-term sustainable funding through the efforts of DMV Moves and SJ 28. We wanted to ensure that as DMV Moves and SJ 28, they recognize the priorities of the MVTC jurisdictions, the primary funders of our transit systems. They develop both the vision for public transit in our region, but also how we identify and secure funding. And I will say that both the actions by DMV Moves and SJ 28 are very consistent, I think, with our resolutions and reflect great work on the part of our staff and also the decision makers in DMV Moves and SJ 28. You know, we have the ability to respond to what these 18+ month efforts have yielded. To say that I'm pleased with what has been presented in their resolutions, and pleased is way too modest. But first, I'd invite Andy to provide an overview endorsed by DMV Moves and SJ 28 to refresh people's recollections. And you also have in front of you both the actions that were taken, the resolution of the GMB task force and the resolution of the Senate. And yes, we'll go ahead.
All right, thank you, Chair Snyder. And as the chair mentioned, both of those resolutions are in front of you and were approved for SJ 28 were approved by that body yesterday, and the DMV Moves Task Force approved their resolution last week. So go to the next slide, please. I'll give a very quick summary of what is in the DMV Moves recommendations that again are in front of you to receive. What this slide shows is DMV Moves approved a funding framework for WMATA's additional capital funding from DC, Maryland, and Virginia. So that's $460 million per year that would grow at 3%, and it would establish a revolving fund that would enable WMATA to maintain a state of good repair and modernize Metro Rail system. The task force decided that each state should come up with a funding solution to meet its commitments under that framework. That was a decision they made much earlier this year, but I want to bring that back for the commission as we kind of tell this collected story and how these two efforts are integrated with each other. DMV Moves also had recommendations that called for for transit agencies and jurisdictional partners to make commitments towards a regional bus priority network. 2 of those corridors in Virginia, Route 7 and Columbia Pike. And then lastly, the DMV Moves recommendations call for implementation of a regional action plan for transit, and that is about creating more seamless, customer-friendly system. The approved resolutions before you include an executive summary of that plan, but we are still waiting on publication of the actual document itself. That will come soon. Later this month, the WMATA POG boards, which are who formed DMV Moves, will meet jointly to consider the recommendations of the task force that they voted on last. Next slide, please. So switching subjects to SJ 28. What I'm going to do in this presentation is tie together the various subcommittee efforts over the last 2 years, and they led to a recommendation that was approved yesterday, which is mostly around revenue structure and then some considerations of potential sources. And this is all to help solve the funding needs of Northern Virginia transit agencies. And that's so these slides help tell that story of the approved recommendations. Where applicable, each slide references a recommendation number, and that's to kind of give you a cross-reference to the recommendations in the resolution itself. Next slide, please. As a reminder, the subcommittee's founding resolution passed the General Assembly in 2024. That was chartered to study the long-term sustainable and dedicated funding for WMATA, VRE, OmniRide, and MVTC agencies. And this effort did work closely with DMV Moves. In terms of funding goals, what you're about to see on the next slide, but let's stay on this one for a moment. I just want to help set the stage, is that we're looking at a total of transit needs that would maintain current operating services, maintain a capital state of good repair, help prepare agencies for future growth, not necessarily serve as expansion. We're looking at a set of funding needs that would help reduce pressure on local general funds, but it would not remove local general funds from the transit funding equation in Northern Virginia. These needs, however, collectively would remove WMATA from the Commonwealth's general fund, which is not a sustainable long-term source of funding for WMATA and does not provide a sort of predictable pathway for state and local funding partners. The last piece here in the funding goals is that this would also help advance transit and bus priority projects, connecting back to that DMV moves task force goal of regional bus priority commitments advanced by state and local partners. The needs you're about to see are generally thematically in sync with decisions that were made at DMV moves last year about focusing on state of grid repair and maintaining services. Next slide, please. So I'm gonna slowly walk through this slide because it is a little new since our last sets of meetings. What this slide shows is those themes that I just talked about applied against the agencies that I referenced earlier. They add up to an approximately $400 million per year annual need starting in FY 28 that would then grow. These needs were endorsed by the subcommittee at their last meeting and then included in the resolution. I'm sorry, 2 meetings ago, and then included in their resolution that was adopted yesterday. So this cumulative need, I just want to point out, is not is a need that could be met by policymakers with any combination of state, regional funds. So this is not saying it's $400 million of local needs, $400 million of state needs. It's saying this is the need, and there's a lot of different ways that it could be met, and we will put some structure recommendations about how that could be achieved. So talking about these briefly, on the top left, this is 153 million per year starting in fiscal 28. This is to find a permanent operating solution for that temporary 2 years of general fund support and local match that helped carry WMATA through the fiscal 25-26 operating budgets from the Virginia subsidies. This helped close that operating gap that was caused by the exhaustion of federal aid. DC and Maryland have already done their parts here in terms of meeting this obligation. So this is very much a Virginia conversation about how Virginia wants to meet its obligations to WMATA. This need is soon. This is not a fiscal 28 need. This is a fiscal 27 need. Fiscal 27 budgets are being talked about right now. So this is a very timely issue. On the next, on the top right, this is the, I'm sorry, stay on this slide. Yeah, this is the WMATA capital need that I mentioned. So this would be Virginia's share of that DC, Maryland, Virginia, $460 million total. This would be to continue state of good repair and modernization efforts. And it would grow at 3% per year. On the bottom left, we have VRE's fiscal 28 funding need, which is to fill their structural gap of 35 million per year to maintain current services after federal aid is exhausted in the future. After Long Bridge opens, there is an additional $40 million need to run additional services. So that is kind of a unique aspect of this slide, and that is to leverage the transformational effects of the Transforming Rail in Virginia initiative. And then lastly, on the bottom two right here, these are our NVTC local bus providers, OmniRide, and these were developed after consultation with those agencies. Essentially, local bus providers have similar structural funding problems as WMATA. It's just a different scale. And OmniRide in particular for PRTC has a different set of structural issues that this funding would help resolve, but namely with a more predictable pathway, both from a funding partner perspective, as well as their ability to provide services and prepare for future growth. We go to the next slide. This kind of rolls all this back up.
Just break in, you have a lot of slides here.
Okay.
If you can, really focus on the most important ones.
Okay.
Right.
So what I want to mention on this timeline is just that need I mentioned. There's an early need in fiscal 27, and then things grow with that Long Bridge need. Go to the next slide. Again, we're trying to solve this $400 million. As you look at the resolution recommendations, they speak to regional statewide solutions. When we talk about regional, we're referring to NVTC, PRTC. When we talk about statewide, there are opportunities for statewide funding to help other agencies as well as help other agencies in the Commonwealth, like Hampton Roads and Richmond. And next slide. This is a long list of assumptions. The highlights here that I want to mention are that in maintaining that 50-50 split that we heard was very important from the subcommittee about funding WMATA. If you look back to those numbers, there's a need to find bondable funding for WMATA's capital needs, and bondable funding for WMATA in a Virginia context needs to come from regional sources. So the other side of that coin is that if those are regional sources, the subcommittee is going to look for operating solutions that are from statewide sources. So that's kind of a key assumption that then informs some of the structure that you see. Next slide. I think in terms of, without giving a comprehensive overview of how statewide transit funding flows, we put together a framework in which additional statewide revenues can benefit all agencies and try to interact with existing sources to reach those funding marks. I do want to caution that these are some pretty large numbers, and it is a pretty significant lift, but what we put in the resolution is a framework to help get there. I'm recognizing that many of these pieces in terms of state and regional funding is kind of like a game of three-dimensional chess, but we put a really solid framework together. And there's a flexibility about funding sources, a variety of options listed throughout the study. Policymakers, great degree of choices how to solve those needs. Next slide. I'll kind of spend some time on this because it's an important slide to mention. There's going to be a need for a combination of regional and statewide funds, as I mentioned. This recommendation here calls for establishing a regional transit fund at NVTC. It would do a number of things as shown on the right. The first would be use regional funding sources to provide dedicated capital funding to WMATA that would be bondable, so that's very important for WMATA's needs. The next would be to provide bondable funding to VRE using the existing CROP fund, and that was a recommendation for KRTC. The next is an important recommendation about funding for localities to help them pay for their transit needs. And that includes intentional flexibility about the ability to use funds for Metrobus and or local providers or VRE, recognizing that each of our 6 cities and counties have different ways they interact with transit. And then the last piece I do want to spend some time on this would be to have the ability to provide up to 2% of funds for regional technical assistance and coordination. This recommendation is written as a way to support the bus priority recommendations DMV moves. Those recommendations ask state and local partners to make commitments on bus priority. And this recommendation fills the gap that we've noticed of Northern Virginia. In each, there's ample construction funds available, but limited funds for study, planning, and design, which are the types of activities needed to advance the projects. Next slide, please. This would be essentially a mirror recommendation, or this is a mirror recommendation to that NVTC regional fund, reflecting that and KRTC is our funding and governance partner with VRE. So this would be their side of the VRE dedicated funding equation, as well as an ability for them to have predictable funding for OmniRide services. Next slide. There's a number of recommendations in the resolution about cost efficiencies and stability. The one I want to highlight here is primarily around 3% cap. This recommendation calls for forming Virginia's legislative 3% operating cap in a way that continues to encourage cost containment, but resolves some of the unintended consequences and conflict formula. Next slide. And then lastly, there's a few sort of study and additional revenue source study recommendations were approved yesterday. One of them is to get some additional clarity around revenue sources that currently exist. Existing dedicated funding WMATA capital fund, to look at potential tolling opportunities for revenue estimates there on I-66 that staff are not able to obtain during the study process. And then I think an additional revenue source of looking at opportunities for revenue. Free parking was suggested and added to the resolution yesterday. So the presentation here summarizes the recommendations. The resolution with all of the content is at your seat. What I want to end on here is just that this really is a strong framework. As I mentioned before, funding, this type of funding concept is very much a game of three-dimensional chess. And so the recommendation calls for a very strong structure, flexible way to meet those needs with a lot of room for policymakers in selection of revenue sources while providing with excellent technical information. So with that.
How much staff would they come into this? With the, being a big yesterday. Paul, do you have any comment on that? About the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it was a really significant achievement, really, to have the region come together and vote for the framework. Yes, there were some abstentions, which focused primarily on the overall total or the funding piece. They didn't want to have the impression that they were voting for that actual figure. But it was explained to them, this is just the recommendation that, you know, if we want this, this is what it would cost. And it is exactly what the region asked for. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard from folks, you know, we have to go through this exercise every year, appropriation every year. What are we going to do to fix some of the systemic issues that people know is wrong, the formula? So this was an honest attempt to really try to get at that. And the fact that the key elected leaders, the key administrative leaders in the region from the 3 states came together and attended meetings for, you know, 2+ hours, were actually present and engaged, I think said a lot. And I think it said that they were really committed, you know, to this effort. So Andrew highlighted the, you know, the key points there very well. You know, 2 weeks, we'll have the joint meeting of the WMATA board as well as COG board. Hopefully we'll have, you know, a final resolution. And we also wanted to have a framework by which people like the delegates and the senator could use coming up to the legislative session. Because there has been a lot of talk about transit. DC already has a place marker for a tax. But that's the way they, you know, they're going to choose to do it. You know, they have a very different process and approach, and maybe not quite the same dynamics that we have, say, here in Virginia. So we wanted something really, you know, solid that, you know, the jurisdictions could look at. And I think it really focused people on the importance of transit, Metro in particular, to the region. And, you know, it's interesting. In fact, Jerry Conley said this long ago, you know, if there's one thing that brings this region together, it's Metro. Everyone can agree on it. They may not agree on how certain things should be necessarily all the time, but there's one thing that brings this entire region together, and it's Metro. So, you know, we need to do something, make sure it's sustainable into the future and fix those structural things that aren't great with our formula. I just want to say too, Dave, Mr. Chair, if I could, just acknowledge the work that Andrew and the entire NVTC team, many of you back there, Adam and others, Kate, obviously you've attended numerous meetings and briefed numerous folks. And that was, you know, extremely. It's really good work, and working with Nate and the consultants. Really key. You know,
Thank you, Supervisor Behrman, you know.
Just a quick question about some of these options, excuse me, for the Regional Transit Fund. So who decides? Is this decided entirely by the legislature, by the state? Or is this something where you need localities to make a choice? No, this is the state legislature implements a regional sales tax, for instance. And the localities, I mean, we lobby for it if we want it, but it's not something where there's like a pass through and each of us needs to make an individual decision.
I didn't envision it that way. I mean, I think this is a pretty thorough and flexible statement of our principles, which the General Assembly will ultimately have to enact.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
Yes.
Kind of relatedly, like thinking about timing, right? Because fiscal year 27 begins in 8 months. And we are all about to enter our own budgeting processes, and we will have to adopt budgets before the fiscal year begins ideally. In the best case scenario, are these sources of revenue going to be available and, you know, being collected by the beginning of the fiscal year?
If it's an existing source like the sales tax, it can be ramped up for July 1st. If it's a new source, like a tax on package deliveries or something, that would take longer to implement.
And are there any referendums required to approve any of these?
Not in our thinking.
Okay.
Takis, did you have a question?
I have actually the same question because I wanted to ask to which extent we can just go ahead and increase sales tax. I believe that this is a Dillon discussion, right? So the General Assembly must act on this. Enable us to do, right?
Right. We're gonna pass it.
They're gonna pass.
Okay.
That's-
Oh,
There was an election, yeah.
I'm sorry. And the second. Yes, they're gonna pass.
And we have no.
Everybody heard that. So the second thing is this, these recommendations, and by the way, this is
Just like we did in
amazing.
2313.
Thank you so much for this. It also elevates NBTC at a completely new level. Now NBTC is more than a think tank and a policy job. It's actually a funding agency. And does this require any action by the General Assembly?
Well, we already are funding from
Yeah.
inside, from the toll lanes, and I mean, if it requires action, we'll take it.
Yeah.
I mean, in our
Okay.
bill.
Fine, thank you.
If you
It's
wanna
very
know how,
quickly-
if you wanna know how the money works, go visit Vivian Watts and she'll have.
We have her on speed.
But yeah, just very quickly, I think, you know, building on Supervisor Bierman's question about if this is gonna be regional. This is something, I know there have been at least conversations about it as legislation gets drafted. I personally would recommend we go as a region, that it be a regional approach. You know, whatever the revenue source is, and frankly, we go all in that way. And that makes it, and frankly, the NVTC jurisdictions, I think in particular, that makes sense.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, and just to put a little final point on some things, you know, one of the goals of the DMV Moves effort in particular, but also with SJ 28 is to give the jurisdictions some certainty.
Yeah.
Right? That, you know, that's the key, and that, you know, I heard that when I was on council, I knew we wanted, you know, but you never knew what it was gonna be year to year. This way, at least there'd be some certainty. So I applaud, you know, the efforts of the DMV Moves effort, and then with Senator Eben and Delegate Sickles and others have done to pursue it at the state level, because it's gonna be helpful, not only in the short term, but particularly in the long.
Mr. Chairman. I remember the last time we were in this kind of a political situation where we had, 1980s, we had the three, when we had the three bodies, if you will, the governor and the Senate and the House, we did that omnibus transportation bill. Remember that? So I would,
The interstate.
yeah, the interstate, and so I can see maybe something like that emerging.
Senator Evans, do you have any additional comments you want to make?
I just want to reiterate the thanks extended to Andrew Vetter and MVTC staff for their leadership on this. You know, participation in the technical advisory committee, which included a lot of people outside of MVTC too. But thank MVTC staff for doing that. I think the resolution is pretty thorough. And it points out the ideally not to rely solely on a new on an increase in sales tax, but to consider combinations of highway use fee, retail delivery fee, transportation network company tax, but there's flexibility in here because we are committed to trying to get something passed and we'll do what we need to do. And we'll also do it in a way that'll benefit other regions of the state for their regional funds.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. I had a bit of a follow-up to that, which is I was curious because it's presented as sort of two different slides, a PRTC fund and an MVTC fund, and then list the options. Is the vision to establish, to make the same choice for both funds or to consider different solutions for each fund?
If the PRTC region wanted something different, maybe, but I would imagine that we would do the same types of items, although their financial needs are different.
Well, in my fantasy bill I'm drafting, the Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania Stafford will have a different set to raise money there for their participation in PRTC.
And so will there be opportunities for NVTC members to sort of lobby on these things or coordinate? So what I'm trying to think about is we don't want to be across purposes. You know what I mean? Like how might we envision the dialogue between NVTC, PRTC membership to?
Well, if there's something in this resolution that gives you discomfort, you should let us know. But our intention is to abide by something that will fall within.
Sure, no, I just meant like, I think we're, we have.
To lobby and
for
support.
us. I was looking to support it moving forward.
Yeah.
Indicating like, will there be opportunities, and hopefully there would be for us to. And that's why I was asking the question about different sources. I didn't know if PRTC and NVTC might have slightly different asks moving forward.
And Mr. Chair, I'm happy to add just a little bit to this. One of the things that became very clear in the analyticals part of this. So the team looked at 15 different revenue sources and the yields from the NVTC district, the yields from the PRTC district, and also statewide. And it's a different story. They're different economies, they're different geographies. And so part of the, by providing a little bit more flexibility, just because we have flexibility in the NVTC, in PRTC is to imagine it may end up being exactly the same. But it's more of what are the things that work well for that geography, the priorities of those areas. But the other thing I do want to add on is throughout this process, we have been working very closely with PRTC staff. They have been working with their delegation. So I think I expect that will continue moving forward. It's just a very different economy and a different types of revenue yield. And of course, there's a different need. They have important VRE needs and PRTC needs, VRE and PRTC needs that are obviously substantially less than our WMATA and local and VRE needs. So as the senator said, some of this is drafted to provide the greatest amount of flexibility to respond to the unique characteristics of our different districts.
Sure. So, have I missed seeing, on the $400 million thing that we approved with SJ 28, $400 million goal, about 111 million is for outside of Northern Virginia. Is that right?
That would be outside, that would be like on top of the 400 million.
Oh,
Yeah.
statewide.
Statewide.
Statewide needs.
Yeah.
Statewide, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I meant to say, statewide. So do we have a breakdown of how, using the current formulas, where that money would go? I haven't seen that, or at least I wasn't awake or something.
What we can do is we can help provide some of that information.
But you have to do that to have a bill pass.
Right, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman.
No.
I've been, just a big thank you. I guess I would note, because I have the same chief administrative officer asking the same question that Mr. Parentenis and Ms. Coffey asked. I guess there are a few slides. It's just super helpful. The 153 million we need immediately. I would note that 223 million, which is the take from NVTC's regional tax, is greater than 153 million. So that would be a source that could meet the immediate need. I guess I feel like that NVTC money slide and then the PRTC money slide in combination with in the appendix, the money slide on the last page really lays out all the thinking that the state delegation, you guys are gonna have to figure out. You can't get a delivery tax done in 4 months. But for me, at least, until someone persuades me that a delivery tax is regressive, it's very attractive because sales tax is not necessarily the most progressive tax. So as a sidekick to Mr. Smedberg on the DMV moves, I will say SJ 28 would be pretty grateful.
Mr. Chairman. Can we, on Mr. DeFrante's, question there about the 400 million, and we know we need 153 for WMATA out of the 400 million. And what was the question you had right after that you weren't?
Well, I just
Didn't know?
I just was trying to fit all these together. You guys will figure it all out, but
No,
I feel like
yeah.
the 223 million sales tax,
Oh,
that would be a cake that would be big enough to meet the FY 27 need.
okay.
That has all the jurisdictions, including our own, very anxious, that it can't be done by July 1st. So that in combination with the answer that you gave, Senator Evan, that legally, we do not need a referendum if you pass the bill, puts me in a better space than I was at the beginning of the day with my chief administrative officer.
Sure. I couldn't tell from this what pedestrian facilities are permitted or not. It doesn't, I didn't explicitly see that in here. I saw that there's some dollars could be used for other kinds of support, but so pedestrian facilities, that, you know, whether it's trails or connection points or whatever, is that something that we know that and I can be used?
It's not part of this bill, but there are efforts to fund that. I know Senator Serval had
Yeah.
some folks researching that, yeah.
These dollars would not be able to be used for that? There's an exclusion of that, or is it, it's not violent and therefore maybe it's possible?
Well, we were trying to write that specifically for the agencies with the needs that have been delineated. Yeah, I mean, that's not to say that a bill couldn't pass that had more, that was for other things, but this is specifically for transit. And then,
I mean, no, Metro's funding one. They could use this money. If, you know, Metro likes to have better access to their facilities, that they could use this money from operations money, could they not?
Yes.
You know,
Delegate Sickles, I was curious, your exchange with Andrew just a few minutes ago. How soon are you gonna need to have a bill through Ledge Council for them to review something this sort of complicated to be ready for the session?
About a week and a half ago.
Andrew?
We can have 17. Well, pre-filing begins the 17th,
Okay.
but we can have a bill in by the fourth or fifth day of the session.
This is a complicated.
It is
draft.
complicated. I mean,
This is a
and that's
very
why I'm
complicated
asking.
draft. That's why it's already one version.
Yeah.
The fantasy version is already being drafted.
Yeah. Let's very quickly. So, yeah, I think you all have heard, hopefully this is helpful as you're looking to draft bills. Some of the discussion, I think there's a lot of support around this room across the jurisdictions for this direction. I think, you know, I certainly heard sooner rather than later is better. So, and I know, I think somebody had asked, maybe it was Maureen, about lobbying. I, for one, am gonna be lobbying a lot on this session. So I would encourage all of my colleagues to work, plan on doing the same. And frankly, working with your legislative jurisdictions.
Thanks. So you have in front of you the DMV moves resolution, and also I need this 28 resolution. I think around Paul Smedberg, Adam Allen, you know, it's supervisor, and something on the office, should not be there. This is.
Mr. Chair?
So,
Do we-
yeah.
Well, the DMV moves, not DMV moves, the SJ 28 subcommittee voted to endorse the resolution. Did we envision taking a vote endorsing this tonight as well? Here?
That might be the next conversation.
What we'd like to ask, NBTC to do is to endorse the DMV moves task force resolution dated October 29, 2025, and the estimated joint subcommittee on the Northern Virginia Transportation Resolution dated November 5, 2025. Including my reference in NBTC's 2026 legislative and policy agenda. And let me say that it's a directional resolution and a resolution endorsing this work, but I'm sure as it goes through the legislative process, there'll be lots of discussion going forward. So I entertain a motion to endorse those two actions. So
Second.
motion is seconded. Any discussion? I'm not seeing any. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you all very much. That item passes unanimously and will be a great assistance, I think, to us as well as to those who work on those two.
Senator Evans, do you need it in written form, a letter?
No,
No.
I mean, it'll be in the minutes, but,
Yeah, we can do that.
Maybe a letter.
I assume that I'm off.
I'll represent that it happened. They'll trust me.
I hope so.
Mr. Chair, it would probably be our expectation with the action like this is that we would probably have a press release.
Okay,
So that probably may help as well.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
anything else on this item? Are you suggesting anything?
I'm not suggesting anything else.
A lot of stuff. So the next item on the agenda is action item number 8. It's the chairman of the sponsoring committee. If you haven't already had a chance to the chairman program sponsoring committee, which includes updates on the Envision 7 DRT project and the ISIS inside the program called projects. Staff are available. If commissioners have any questions. Next item on the agenda, Virginia Railway Express, VRE acting CEO Dallas Richard is here tonight to give his CEO. The VRE operation board chair Sarah Bagley the action item. Again, I'd like to introduce Mitcha or Shiva.
Yeah, no, that's it.
Yeah, there you are. Familiar face on in council, she's the new general counsel, so thank you as well. So the VRE report, go for it.
Good evening. Thank you, sir. Members of the board, I'd like to offer our report for the month of October. Our on-time performance was very successful at 88%. For the first time in more than 2 years, we actually ended the month with over 90% for the last 2 weeks. So a very successful period this month. Ridership, you can, as you might expect, we are down about 25% due to the shutdown, based on our numbers from September to October, and probably soon to be into November, reflecting that as well. Of course, the fare revenue, as it relates to that as well, will be another impact. I'd like to offer that we, in the success stories, I like to say you can't finish on time if you don't start on time. And this month will be the first month since 2023. We have an incentive program with Amtrak where if they can depart our trains on time more than 92%, we offer them an incentive. And this is the first time in more than 2 years that will be offered to Amtrak. So you see this sort of scale of improvement across the board, getting out on time, getting in on time, and these sorts of things are very, very good improvements. Also related to Amtrak, I'm happy to report that we have reinitiated the Amtrak Step Up program with them. It went live on Monday, the 3rd. We've been testing for some time, coordinating with Amtrak. We did a launch of the program to all of our Train Talk users, the regular passengers and users through the program Train Talk on Sunday evening, and it's putting the word out as we speak. Next, I'd like to offer that on 10/21 last month, we did a ribbon cutting for the city of Manassas Park and successfully opened that project, delivered the new parking expansion project with our partners at Manassas Park. Very excited for that. And perhaps even more exciting, Seminary Yard in Alexandria. Tomorrow, we will complete our construction maintenance work for the yard. On Saturday, we'll run our first test train, and on Monday, we have a meeting with the FRA at the site. So we will be ready to stand up that facility for the forthcoming needs for the yard. I'm very excited for that. So that is my report.
Thanks very much. Any questions for Dow? Okay, not seeing any. Board Chair Sarah.
Okay, good evening, everybody. We have a few action items tonight, but we're going to start with action 9B, which is resolution 2583, which will authorize the acting VRE CEO to refer the preliminary FY 2027 VRE operating and capital budget to the jurisdictions for review and comment. This is essentially the kickoff of the budget process, not the end of it, just to be clear. We have VRE's Chief Financial Officer, Mark Schofield, here tonight to give a quick budget update.
Thank you, Ms. Bagley. We would normally have been here a month ago in October. The commission didn't have a meeting, but here tonight. So I'll just give you the high points, and we will be back with a more discussion in December or January. The FY 27 preliminary operating budget for VRE is $117 million. That includes all of our operations, maintenance, and debt. That is right now an increase of only 1.9% over the current year budget, and so let's try to bring that down even a little bit further. We currently are looking then on the capital budget at obligating approximately $89 million of revenues from all of our different partners, and we'll be continuing to work on that and the rest of the budget process. I'll hit two big highlights. Both our changes to passenger fares and our jurisdictional contributions got kind of messed up during the pandemic. We really are trying to get back on that every other year schedule, both of those. So we are proposing an increase to the passengers of 5% in FY 27 after not having an increase last year. That's expected to generate a little over $1 million of additional revenue as compared to the baseline of not having that increase. We are right in the middle of our public participation program right now. We've gone out and done public hearings. We have a video out there for people to watch if they can't come to the public hearing, taking comment by email, by telephone, all the different methods. And we'll be bringing that back to the operations board so that they can hear what the public has to say about the budget, and we'll incorporate that into the process. And then for the jurisdictional contribution, as I mentioned, we will not be proposing an increase to the jurisdictions this year, so staying at the current total level of 19.8%. Sorry, 19.8 million. We do expect then to propose in FY 28 an increase to the jurisdictional contribution, again, going back to that every other year approach. You may have heard, we were planning to have the master agreements survey on October the 1st. That's how we determine where our riders are coming from, where they live. We use that information to allocate the jurisdictional contribution to each individual jurisdiction. That was the day that the government decided to shut down. We made a decision at that time to postpone the survey. We, in discussion with the operations board in October, said that our drop dead date to conduct the survey was Wednesday, November the 12th, and that we needed to have the shutdown be announced to be over by tomorrow, Friday the 7th. So unless there's a miracle in the next 12 hours or so, we expect that we will not be conducting this survey this year, and so we will use the results of last year in order to do the budget. So we will be working over the next few months, weeks, continuing to work on expense and revenue projections, looking at how we're going to program the FTA grants that we have. And then we'll be talking to the operations board in about 2 weeks about where we stand with that, and then bringing a final recommended budget to the operations board in December. With their recommendation, then we will be bringing that to you guys in January, hopefully for your approval. And then the new year will kick off on July 1. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions at all? So you're not seeing any.
Very quickly, just Mark, when is it FY 27 when the pandemic funds will be exhausted?
Great question. Right now, we're looking at FY 28
hard to say exactly when FY 28, but so that, not until a year after that. I would just very much encourage you all and folks on the VRE Ops Board to communicate with our legislators and make sure that that information is appropriately transmitted, because that's gonna be a big financial situation. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So there are a couple more action items we wanted to explain them.
Sure. So for 9C, we have resolution 2584, which will approve the first amendment to the CSX Transportation amended and restated operating access agreement and authorize the acting VRE CEO to execute the agreement on behalf of the commissions. When Transforming Rail in Virginia transaction occurred in 2021, it resulted in separate VRE lease agreements for stations being divided by CSXT and DRPT. Inadvertently, the west platform at the Alexandria station was not included in either agreement. All parties recognize that the west platform should be included as one of the lease facilities. This action will add the west platform into the CSXT agreement. This amendment will not impose any additional financial requirements on the commissions, as only nominal rent is paid to CSXT and BPRA for the VRE station leases. Just a little cleanup here. And then action 9, the commission is asked to approve resolution 2585, which will approve extending the term of the lease agreement with the city of Manassas through its airport director for a parcel of land adjacent to the VRE Broad Run station platform in the amount of $25,217 for a period of 12 months.
Thank you. Any questions commissioners have about any of these VRE action items? All right. So unless there's an objection, I propose we vote of the block of these three actions. Resolution number 2583, resolution number 2584, and resolution number 2585 as discussed. Can I have a motion to approve those resolutions on as a block?
So moved.
There a second. Does anyone wish to remove any of them for further discussion? Not seeing that, all in favor? Is our motion second? The other. Okay, so is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Those items are approved. Sarah, the 2026 legislative agenda.
Sure. The draft VRE 2026 legislative agenda is included in your meeting packet. VRE's legislative agenda aligns closely with NBTC's legislative agenda, which we've already discussed earlier. For both state and federal, VRE will be focused on legislation to secure sustainable funding, support both current operations and future service expansion outlined in System Plan 2050. The commissions will be asked to approve the VRE legislative agenda at their respective December meetings. If I could, Chair, I'm not sure if it was mentioned in the CEO update, but I also just wanted to do a shout out for the groundbreaking that's happening on Wednesday. Did y'all touch on that? You did?
But yeah, we're good.
Oh, can I?
Yeah.
Just I wanted to put it out there, on Wednesday, it's very exciting. We will be doing a groundbreaking event with BPRA at the Amtrak, station in Alexandria. This is a huge collection of projects that will, involve, significant upgrades to the Amtrak station itself and the VRE station itself, to get rid of an at-grade crossing, which, and make it more accessible. The fourth track kickoff, and the replacement of 200-year-plus bridges, in Alexandria that will not only improve service for the trains themselves, but for the experience of everybody that moves underneath those bridges. So, that is Wednesday morning, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
On Wednesday.
9:30. Everybody's welcome in Alexandria.
Will it be?
It's at the VRE Amtrak station in the gravel lot just outside the station.
Any other questions regarding the VRE at this point? You want to talk to anything? Okay, we've already mentioned yours. So how about the CEO search committee update?
I think we're going to have a closed session on that, but what I will share is that the process is going very, very well and it is moving along at pace, and we are optimistic we will have an action for this commission before the end of the year.
Thanks very much. Any questions for VRE that haven't already been asked? All right, thanks a lot. Moving on to the next item. DRPT Director Tiffany Robinson had a last minute conflict. So please take a few minutes to read over. Seeing any, the executive prerogative, okay, busy week, month or so.
Indeed it has, and we actually have a lot of things in our very full newsletter. A couple things I'd love to highlight is, some of our staff had an opportunity, to get out there. You see the amazing slides and presentations that we do here. We have a great team, that put those together, and they actually had a chance to go out to a transit conference, transit, and it's called Impact. It's really about transit oriented community conference, and they actually got to tell a little bit about the story of MBTC and how we do tell stories about transit in our area. I had the chance to do the ribbon cutting ceremony at the Manassas Park VRE station, and if folks have not been out to Manassas Park, let's say in the last 5 years or so, it's a very different community. It's really fantastic. So that was a really great event. I appreciate being invited for that. We had some community choice funding in that. Lots of things going on in the Envision Route 7. There's lots of local pop-up events and community events. We did have a public meeting, sort of public open house that was very well attended. And there's a number of other different things that are in here. The other two I just realized I wanted to mention was, as a part of all the SJ28 efforts, I was actually invited by Delegate Sickles to go and brief the House Appropriations Committee just a couple weeks ago on the efforts of SJ28. Thank you for that opportunity. I think it was very well received. We had obviously a number of our commissioners there behind the dais, so that was wonderful. I also had an opportunity to speak at the Northern Virginia Transportation Alliance's What You Need to Know About Transportation breakfast. And so that was a great opportunity. And I do want to put in, the event was actually honoring Governor Youngkin, who in his remarks included reference to NVTC's work on the value of transit. And so our message is sort of far and wide across the Commonwealth. So that was nice to hear. I do have a new staff to introduce. Wajong Kim, I think she's back there somewhere, is a new senior accountant who's just joined us. We're absolutely delighted to add to our financial staffing group. Because we do manage a lot of federal funds, or not federal funds, you have some federal funds, but funds on behalf of our jurisdictions here at NVTC. So she's going to be working with Scott Colkworth. We are very glad to have got her from the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. So thank you. Welcome to regional government. The other thing I wanted to mention in your materials is something new this year, is actually a metrics report on our communications activities. And so it's very much showing how we are getting out and getting information, whether it be our website. This is always going to be included on a quarterly basis, sort of how our communication activities and how we're measuring them, how successful we are at getting our message out. And I guess the other thing I want to mention on calendar wise, we currently have a plan for a joint WMATA committee and legislative policy committee virtually on November 20th. We are still determining the agenda for that. It may depend on some activities, some briefings of things at WMATA. So we're obviously going to be working very closely to see if we have things available. But if we do not have an agenda, we will be canceling that meeting. But just don't take it on your calendars quite yet, because we're waiting for some, hopefully some information from WMATA that can be shared at that. I believe, and we always have financial reports included. So, Mr. Chair, that's my report.
Thanks very much. I also was announced that the women's leaders. Okay, thanks, Commissioner. It's a lot of great work. It's not done yet. For the benefit of the public, we'll now move into closed sessions and discuss two personnel matters. For the benefit of the listening public, and open sessions following. So we can continue with it. Discussion. The meeting will resume live. It's technically different. We can check on YouTube channel. And I have a motion to leave the session. Motion will read as follows. Pursuant to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, we have 371. For Virginia, the one Transportation Commission to convene a closed session to discuss two personnel matters. commissions and the executive director's annual evaluation, the motion.
So moved.
Right. So, I'm gonna move it to the second. Any further discussion, only because it's just a vote.
Aye.
That was any extension. And, second.
So, Mr. Chair, do you want me to stay?
I would like you to do both, actually.
At the same time?
Like,
You know, I think
I'm even of the year done.
that's fine. I will be right in there.
Hold you back.
I don't want you to get locked out of. First, so that's.
Secrets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's set up that. Thank you.
News.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Never brought back to.
Yes.
Okay, so welcome back to the session. Welcome back to the public and staff. We need a certification and have a motion for a following certification. The Northern Virginia Transportation Commission certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge. Closed session. One, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements. Information Act was discussed. And two, only some public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed session was convened were heard, discussed, or considered. Is there a
So
motion?
moved.
Second.
You, is there a second? Tell you. Not that, okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Can I have a motion to approve the amendment to the executive director's contract as discussed in closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Now, I'd like, I would just say that we did a survey of commission members and, it's hard to do any better than he did. Good performance right across all the elements. And that's about what I have to say. Now, other members of the commission, please feel free to add whatever you'd like.
Mr. Chairman.
Sarah?
No, I want to second and reiterate what the chair has indicated. And also, I think it's a real reflection on you, how comfortable we all are going to your staff. And like, I know I've in the middle of, meetings in the Alexandria City Council, I've said, hey, I need that data point, on bus usage, and your staff and you are always so responsive. And it's really the work you're doing here and the way you have cultivated staff facilitates so much of our work, elsewhere. I think, throughout the SJ28 and other processes, but certainly speaking for myself, I rely on so much of the work that you lead to inform the work that I do in my jurisdiction. So just wanted to acknowledge that and my appreciation for the staff you've brought on and the way you, but I think like it's a positive reflection on the culture you're building and the strength in your staff. So thank you for that.
Yeah, just to build on that, I think actually what we did here earlier tonight in terms of endorsing the SJ28 resolution and that, I mean, some of it's us, but a whole lot of it is you. I mean, honestly, and the staff that you pulled together to make this happen and really to so methodically go through the process of identifying the need, making sure that, WMATA was doing everything possible to increase efficiency and reduce costs. Bringing it all together with, the state folks, and local folks and, the technical issues. I mean, it really is, I think, a wonderful encapsulation of what you bring to the job. And frankly, it passed. So I think that's a lot of that reflects on you. So thank you.
Just want to add briefly, because you might point to staff, but without your proactive versus reactive preparation, you were ahead of this whole process, at least a year ago, right? And making sure that the right people were in that room, that the right partners were there, and that you and your team at MVTC were seen as that partner and thought leader to get that work done. So thank you for being way ahead of all of us and making sure that MVTC had that major role.
Mr. Chair. I know we want to be brief. So great leaders, I think, stay attuned in each year to what they need to do for that particular year. And you've done that this year and particularly appreciate that. And then I think to put Walter's point in a slightly different frame, when we all retire, we're going to be excited that we delivered long-term sustainable funding for Metro and the region. And I think it's true that we'll get to make the votes and Adam and legislature will do it, but you measurably made that possible. That is a huge accomplishment.
Okay. Any further discussion, comments? So we have a motion and a second, okay? I will be meeting with Kate to give her the details, but, I want to reiterate, I think it's, performance and performance of staff is really hard to beat, and almost impossible to beat, so thanks. Fantastic work. Any other comments? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. This concludes our meeting. We'll see you all back here before. Can I have a motion?
Second.
Those are all.
Thank you for.